Suspicion, directed by Alfred Hitchcock in 1941, stars Cary Grant and Joan Fontaine. It is one of Hitchcock's more forgettable thrillers, but today we're going to talk about it and why studio interference can really hamper what is otherwise a great adaptation of a great novel. Hello everybody and welcome back to the Golden Hour Film Podcast. Yes, we are back yet again for another 1940s Alfred Hitchcock film, although stay tuned because chances are we have something special in the pipeline. I just can't tell you how soon that's coming, so I'm not going to tell you any more details. Today I am joined yet again, of course, by my co-host and not guest host, Shane Mulvaney.
Hi everyone.
And yeah, today we're talking about Suspicion. It's directed by Alfred Hitchcock, of course. And it stars Cary Grant, Joan Fontaine, and Nigel Bruce, who I had never heard of up until this film. And it is, again, because this is going to happen quite a bit, a film where Alfred Hitchcock adapted a novel. I think it's one of his favourite authors, actually, Francis Eel, or Eels. It's a pretty French-sounding surname, and Hitchcock always refers to him by his actual name, A.B. Cox, so ABC. And this film was produced by RKO Studios, not any relation to Randy Orton, and unfortunately, due to RKO's interference, we didn't get the ending that we wanted, we didn't get the ending that Hitchcock wanted, and we didn't get the ending that the author of the novel wanted. But hey, of course, we're going to talk about that at the ending of this podcast. In the meantime, Shane, how are you?
I'm good, Harry. How are you?
Yeah, I am flying. So this film, we'll just talk about some of the basics. It had a profit of about 400k, which, you know, we're talking about the 1940s here. That's a pretty big deal considering it had a budget of 1.8 million. And it features the only ever Oscar-winning performance from an actor or actress in an Alfred Hitchcock film. That was, in fact, Joan Fontaine. So yeah, if we ever talk about somebody who got nominated for an Academy Award in an Alfred Hitchcock film, they didn't win it, regardless of how good their performance was or how much they deserved it. The film is probably best known for two things. One, it's anticlimactic, somewhat of a cop-out ending, and two, the milk scene, which is literally like 10 seconds long and has no dialogue, but it's so perfect that of course it's famous. Oh, by the way, guys, if you wouldn't mind, if you could like the video, that would be amazing. Like, sharing it and stuff is great. Commenting on the video is great. But liking it, you know, watching it the whole way through, that's amazing. And then on Spotify or Amazon or wherever, just not Apple Podcasts, burn them to the ground. If you could give us some good ratings, that would be really appreciated as well. Because, you know, we are trying to grow a channel here. And that sort of engagement and stuff really does help us. You probably don't realize how much it does. But, like, it's huge for helping us grow an audience, get more views, get more subscribers, and really, you know, kind of ramp this thing up a bit, because we're really kind of coming into our stride. But hey, we need the likes to help us, you know, progress even more.
Yeah, thanks so much to everyone who has watched any of the videos so far. Even if you haven't watched any of the films, yeah, we're basically just trying to build this thing from the ground up, and any support is appreciated. So thanks again. Yeah, so just jumping on that, apparently the film was originally intended to star George Sanders, who we saw in Hitchcock's Foreign Correspondent and Rebecca, and Anne Shirley, but when Hitchcock became involved, the budget increased, and he actually then wanted Laurence Olivier and Francis D to star, and then he wanted Cary Grant after Laurence Olivier passed. That's how we got the Cary Grant Joan Fontaine pairing that we see in the film now. And it's also Hitchcock's first film as a producer-director rather than just directing. Harry E. Eddington was originally the producer, but while in production, he was fired, so Hitchcock became producer/director.
Yeah, I can't confirm if that's the same producer, but I do know on this film there was a producer who test screened the film and didn't like that Cary Grant was being portrayed as a murderer. Yeah. So he cut out every single scene that it was alluded to that Cary Grant was a murderer, which left the film at 55 minutes long.
Yeah, I read that as well.
So then another producer was like, hey, we can't really put this out at 55 minutes, you idiot. So all the scenes were clipped back in, and instead we got that stupid ending. So yeah, the film is a bit of a mixed bag. There's some good and there's some bad, and we're just going to talk about what we think. So the film starts with Johnny Aysgarth, the name of good old Cary Grant's character, and he meets Lena on a train. Yes, two strangers on a train. He has a third class ticket, but he is sitting in the first class section. So yeah, we are one scene in, and he's already punching above his pay grade when it comes to hanging out with wealthy people he shouldn't be, because he doesn't have any money, because he doesn't work for anything he has, really. He just kind of scams his way through life. But we'll talk about that in a bit. So he is sitting opposite Joan Fontaine's character, Lena, and he asks her for some spare change so that he can sit with her. Which, you know, in that situation, I'm just saying, nah, mate, you can just sit
Bugger
third
off.
class. Thanks.
Yeah.
He's already being a bit weird, like. So, no, she unwillingly gives him a stamp, which was legal tender then. It's still legal tender now, but you can't even buy a quarter of a Freddo with one. And they start to bump into each other a little bit more frequently. I think there's some sort of hunt going on, because there's a hunt ball later. It's some sort of hunt anyway, where Johnny sees that Lena is a jockey, or she rides horses anyway, and he is instantly like, girl has cash, because she can afford a horse in 1941. So he just rocks on over to her house. Yep, we're back at it with the lovable male Hitchcock protagonists. And, well, no, this guy is kind of painted out as a villain. I mean, Hitchcock handles this way better than Mr. and Mrs. Smith. And, yeah, he asks her to go to church. Oh my God, he's so wholesome.
Yeah.
And then by the time they get to church, he's actually like, no, I don't want to go to church. I want to unbutton your blouse. So, nice one, Cary Grant. You're not as charming in this one as you are in every other film. You're a little bit sleazy in this one, but that's obviously how the character is meant to be portrayed.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, Hitchcock does regularly handle this sort of stuff very well. But, you know, I think maybe just coming off the back of Mr. and Mrs. Smith, I can't help but question him now.
Yeah.
Because that movie sucked so bad that now I'm kind of reading into everything, being like, is he that good? But no, he is. He is that good. Mr. and Mrs. Smith is just terrible. So she tries to, you know, reject Johnny, give him the boot. But no, he just follows her back to her house. And after she overhears her mom and dad slagging her off, she turns around, she just kisses Johnny and runs into her house, because she's got a bit of an odd relationship with her parents, does Arlena, and they're not particularly nice to her. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of built-up frustration there with her. So she seems to, I don't know, exude this frustration, or exert this frustration is what I should have said, by paying attention to this Johnny character, because he's a lovable rogue, is our Johnny. Well, he's definitely rogue.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, clearly Johnny is, if not the first person to like show her attention, certainly the first one that she at least is somewhat charmed by. Coupled with the fact, like you said, about her parents having a difficult relationship with her parents, she then starts to just basically become obsessed with Johnny. Essentially, you make plans for following a few days later, and he basically ghosts her. She doesn't want to talk to her mom, she doesn't want to talk to her dad, but then she eventually sees a letter from Johnny saying that he was going to be at the ball that night, so she immediately just perks right up. She dresses really fancy, she's looking around for him at the party, and she just, as soon as she sees him, then her eyes light up, you know?
Yeah, it's a shame as well, because it's literally the first time she actually tells her parents about her and Johnny being a thing, that then instantly the phone rings and he cancels plans with her. So already the father's got a bit of doubt creeping in, because he knows Johnny. Johnny's a bit of a local legend for basically sleeping with all the other women in the town and trying to use them for all their money. And also in that letter that he sends her, when he says, see you at the hunt ball, don't forget to bring your occipital mapillary? Occipital mapillary. That's an expression that was just coined in this film. Pretty sure that expression never existed before this film. Wow. It's like your throat. It comes up in a lot of Dracula films after this. Funnily enough, not in the Dracula film before this. So, yeah, there's a phrase that got invented. Nice work, guys. And basically, yeah, Johnny blags his way into this hunt ball, and it's kind of funny and quite well shot. Where when he finally does get in, Joan Fontaine's character, oh, I feel like I'm in episode 1 there for a second. That was weird.
Lena.
Yep. Lena runs towards Johnny, and she's like, "Oh my god, it's Johnny!" And then so does like 8 other women, and they all go, "Oh my god, it's Johnny!" That was pretty funny. He sort of swats them away and whisks Lena onto the dance floor. They start dancing, and then he instantly just pulls her out of the hunt ball, throws her in a car, and is like, "Right, we're heading off on a little mischievous adventure, Lena." He kisses her in the car because she's never been kissed in a car before. And she says she's in love with him. And he says he's falling in love with her. You know, typical like 14-year-old on Snapchat stuff where like you don't want to give too much away. And then they go back to Lena's. And she says, for the first time in my life, I know what I want. Because poor old Lena, she's a pretty confused girl. She's just a girl in the world. And she's trying to navigate this world where basically nobody is paying any attention to her or helping her, but she's just got a load of cash, so everybody's trying to exploit her. But she knows what she wants in her life is Johnny. And we also get this great shot as well where they have their first like big kiss, and Hitchcock literally does like a 180, moving the camera around them. It's not like a full 360, but it's well shot. Nice work, Hitchcock. And then Johnny says that they're going to get married.
And this is like where I want to just jump in a little bit, because I've mentioned my criticism of some Hitchcock films in the past, that the romance can just feel way too rushed. This is actually he does a good job in this Hitchcock of like setting up the whirlwind romance where she's really swept off her feet. You can really buy into the fact that she does effectively fall in love with this guy very quickly. I think it was Brian De Palma actually said about Hitchcock, he's one of the best capturers of on-screen kisses because of those kind of camera techniques that he would use. You can see the effect that these kisses have on the two people involved. And the kiss you just mentioned there, I mean, that's a really good example of it. I think he actually used we're going to come on to Notorious in a few films' time. He used the famous kiss in that between Cary Grant and Ingrid Bergman. But between Cary Grant and Joan Fontaine in this, that's also a good example, I think, of that.
Yeah, I think the setting up of it is good because of how out of her sorts Lena seems in life. It's kind of like if you're like playing a card game that you don't really know how to play and you're just dealt a really good hand and then you start panicking. It's like she has no idea how to like take control of any of these situations, even though she like has the upper hand class wise, because we're in the 40s and class is important. Whereas our boy Johnny is a bit of a scoundrel, a bit of a scallywag, and he is very good at navigating these sort of situations despite having absolutely zero money. And we are about to find that out in a big way, because the two of them get married. They have their whole honeymoon where they do a bit of a European tour, and they move into this big old Georgian mansion where we all discover that Johnny, not only is he broke, but he has lots of gambling debts. And he actually borrowed money to pay for the honeymoon for his new wife, which he is now asking if he can lend off her. So if anything, she paid for the honeymoon because she gives it to him. So I don't know how she doesn't put 2 and 2 together there. That one, I'm like, how can you not see that you've just paid for your honeymoon? He's not treating you well.
I think she does clock it, but she doesn't really want to rustle feathers. She's so swept up in the romance that she probably, it almost blindsides her, and she doesn't really want to think too hard about it in a way.
Yeah, although he does literally lay it bare and say, yeah, no, what about your dad? Does he not have a lot of money? Can we not just borrow that from him?
That's true. Yeah.
That's in that same scene. He is literally showing his cards, and we are only just into this film, in fairness. Yeah, no, he kind of lays it bare. He's like, yeah, no, your dad has a lot of cash. Yeah. You have a lot of cash. Can I have it?
And this is
like getting a job.
And this is why Cary Grant is so good, because like so many actors would play that and you'd really kind of hate the guy. Like he's such an almost endearing scoundrel up to this point that you're like, yeah, just give him the money. Just give him the money. Come on. Just give him the money.
Just see what he does with it.
Yeah, exactly.
Because the father, good old General, gives him a call and says, "Hey, guys, I got you a wedding present. I saw how happy the two of you were at the train station. Here's a wedding present." Cary Grant's like, "Yes, it's going to be a comically large bag of money with a big dollar sign on it." No, it's 2 chairs. It's 2 chairs.
Too expensive chairs.
Yes, 2 expensive old chairs. So, yeah, she says, like, "Oh, no, these are like family heirlooms. We can give these to our kids. They really mean a lot to me." And he's like, "Yeah, sweet. Yeah, no, I'm listening." I don't think he was listening, because after our good friend Beaky pops by, let's talk about Beaky for a second. Played by, of course, Nigel Bruce, who I had never heard of prior to this film. What did you make of Nigel Bruce's performance as Beaky?
Yeah, it's an interesting performance. I actually liked it a lot, but like, I think he does a good job of selling the fact that clearly, like, Johnny's like a more charismatic person than Beaky is, so you can kind of understand him kind of just getting swept up. We talked about Lena getting swept up in the romance, so you can kind of understand Beaky just wanting to ride Johnny's coattails, being like a kind of a scallywag scoundrel who you kind of can't help but love up to this point. We'll talk about what goes on, but you can kind of understand Beaky wanting to just go along for the ride, really.
Yeah, because up until this point, after it was really hammered home by the general and Lena that, Cary Grant needs to get a job, he was like, "Yeah, no, I'm going to work for my cousin." So yeah, Beaky pops by, and as he does, he kind of introduces himself not only to Lena, but to us, the audience.
Yeah.
And Lena notices, "Oh my God, those 2 chairs that were literally in the last scene are already gone." And Beaky's like, I bet you he sold them to feed his gambling addiction. Also, nice to meet you, I'm Beaky." What a rat.
Yeah.
Anyway, like, good for him, because like he is like a protagonist in this film, but like not a great friend to Johnny, even if Johnny's in the wrong.
Well, he's also
not
trying
a great friend.
Well, yes, that's true to an extent, but he's basically putting Johnny over. Like, he can't help but he clearly like has a lot of affection for Johnny, so he's almost making that into like a positive thing in a way. That like, oh yeah, of course he sold it. Like, he wants to make money for you, like that kind of thing.
Yeah. He's not very intelligent as Beaky.
No,
He's very easily manipulated.
Yeah.
So for a master manipulator like Johnny to kind of get his paws on him, leads to such a bizarre friendship between the two. Yeah, the next scene, Lena goes to see her mate. Well, she sees her mate. Well, she's just kind of going out for a walk, doing errands. Who is this author character who's very clearly meant to be Hitchcock in his own film. And she is played by, I don't know how to pronounce her first name. I think it's Oriel Lee, who unfortunately, because I seem to have to do this every episode, passed away whilst filming this film.
Oh, okay.
Yes, she was on her way home from work and she was in a car crash. Literally on the way home from filming.
That's bad.
I feel like this happens in every film that we talk about. But yeah,
Yeah.
felt like I couldn't not say it. But yeah, she meets her friend, who is the author, Isabel.
I'll just jump on that actually for one quick second, because I actually was thinking about Agatha Christie. I think the author is kind of meant to be Agatha Christie. They talk about like she does a lot of murder, crime, romance, like whodunits kind of things. So maybe it's definitely to a partly Hitchcock, but I also think because Agatha Christie at the time would have been like one of the biggest, if not the biggest author in Britain at the time. So yeah, maybe there's part of that as well. Maybe she's partly based on her as well. So,
definitely influences there from Agatha Christie as well, 100%. And after chatting to Isabel, she walks past this antique shop, and in the window of the antique shop is those 2 chairs.
Yeah.
Because originally Lena didn't want to believe Beaky, who she had just met, but she should have. So she goes home. Beaky, who's just still hanging around their gaff, is there. And she apologizes to Beaky. She's like, "I owe you an apology. You were so right. He actually did pawn off the chairs." And Beaky's like, sure, it's grand. That's Johnny. He's just a bit of a legend, isn't he?
Yeah.
And then Johnny, the big legend, actually comes home because the money that he had received for the chairs, he spent betting on a horse.
Yeah.
Which won. So, yay. It all worked out in the end, and they all lived happily ever after. No, but for now, everything's going well because Johnny also got the receipt, so he managed to get the chairs back. So for now, Johnny's addiction is looking pretty good, but yeah, it's a gambling addiction, so it's not going to end very well for him. Let's just put that out there.
Yeah.
And whilst they're all celebrating, Beaky nearly dies because he's allergic to brandy. That's why, which is important.
Yeah.
But yeah, he just has a shot of brandy, which almost kills him. I fully thought he was just going to die after being in 2 scenes, and I was like, wow, Hitchcock, that is like a new record for you. But no, Beaky survives. And Lena then kind of goes out for another stroll of hers, and she sees her husband's cousin's workplace, which is where Johnny has been working the whole time. And she goes in there, and he's played by Leo G. Carroll, because that guy has to be in every Hitchcock film.
Yeah.
And she says, oh, yeah, how's Johnny getting on? And Leo G. Carroll is Melbeck, Captain Melbeck, says,
Johnny's cousin.
Yeah, I'm sure you've heard. And she's like, oh, God. So basically, he says he's not going to prosecute Johnny, and she is like, prosecute him for literally, like, what? What has he actually done now? We are just 1 scene removed from him finally doing something good in his eyes. And he's already messed up again. After a few characters have also said, oh, yeah, no, we saw Johnny at the races. Melbeck says, I actually sacked Johnny 6 weeks ago, and he stole $2,000 from me.
Yeah.
Which I do want him to pay me back, but I'm not going to take him to court over it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Johnny's really digging himself holes everywhere. And he's not filling them fast enough.
No.
So at this point, Lena realizes, yeah, Johnny really is not who he says he is. So after, him trying to exploit her for her money, him selling her family heirlooms. Yeah, sure, he got them back, but selling her family heirlooms without consulting her. And now, after lying about working with his cousin for 6 weeks and saying that he quit gambling, she's had enough. She goes home and she goes to write a letter to say, Johnny, things haven't worked out. I'm leaving you. I don't ever want to see you again. I wish you the best in your future endeavors, as Vince McMahon would say. And behind her is Johnny, who says, I presume you've heard, which is like a death sentence in this film. If anyone ever says, I presume you've heard, bad stuff's happening, because it's never the thing that you think it is. And he says, I presume you've heard. And
she thinks he's talking about Melbeck,
Yeah. She thinks he's talking about Melbeck, but no. Her dad died. So we got a will that we have to divvy up.
Yeah.
But yeah, in the novel, supposedly it was all Johnny's fault that the dad died. He really worked him up to a point where he had a heart attack and died.
Well,
whereas in this, it's probably not Johnny. You can't say it wasn't him because everything's pretty ambiguous in this film. But I would say that this probably wasn't Johnny.
I'd say he had some part to play because he clearly didn't like Johnny very much. And there's that scene earlier in the film where Johnny basically taunts a big ass painting of General McLeodlaw, aka Lena's father. He basically taunts him about the fact that he's going to be marrying his daughter. So the two of them just don't get along. But like you said, it's not probably the primary reason.
And that portrait's a pretty big deal because, that's all they get in the will.
Yeah.
Lol. The only child of this mega millionaire just gets a portrait. Now, it's strategic, obviously. It's because, and they literally talk about it in the next scene, it's probably because everything in this film's pretty open to interpretation. Yeah. It's probably because the father didn't want it to be possible for Johnny to get his hands on the money so soon.
Yeah.
So she's still getting her inheritance she's still getting her allowance, and she'll probably get the full rake of the inheritance if or when her mother eventually passes away. But for now, that house is just going to have a big old portrait of the dad staring down at Johnny every time he goes in to have a drink, which is pretty funny. Unfortunately, this doesn't happen, but that would be pretty funny.
Also, just to mention, Lena has been getting £500 a year, which is a fair chunk of change back in the day. £500 a year basically as like her inheritance. So she's going to continue to get that. She's not getting anything extra, but she's going to continue to get that £500, which is going to be important later on in the film when it comes to certain things that happen. So yeah.
So on the way home, Johnny and Lena are chatting. He's like, "Do you regret marrying me?" She doesn't answer. Fair play to you, Lena. And he's like, "Oh, do you reckon it's because you're married to me that your father didn't give you the money?" And she doesn't answer that either.
Yeah.
Fair play to you, Lena.
Mm-hmm.
And bit of strength in this female Hitchcock character that isn't easy to come by just yet in his career. Happens quite a bit later on in his career, but this early on, not so much. And when they get home, Johnny's already started a new business. I reckon he was probably anticipating that he was going to get a fair chunk of change from that will, which is why he's moved straight into this plan. But when it didn't work, what's he doing? He's using Beaky for his money. Poor old Beaky. So basically the plan is they're going to buy this big old plot of land and then sell some of that land for the price that they bought all of the land. Don't know how they were anticipating that was going to work. And then they were going to build on the rest of the land.
Yeah.
And Beaky's like, "Yeah, this is a great idea. Take all my money." And Johnny's like, "I will."
Again,
Because
just Beaky,
Johnny still has no money.
again, Beaky just being easily led by Johnny, just basically idolising him, and it would not go on to be a great deal for Beaky.
When Lena kind of objects after Johnny leaves the room to Beaky and is like, "Beaky, he is like literally using you for your money. Would you not maybe be a bit more sensible with your money?" Beaky's like, "Oh, it's Johnny. He's a legend though." So it's actually Johnny who overhears this.
Yeah.
Who, after scolding Lena for getting involved in his business, the next day he's actually changed his mind and he's decided he is going to cancel the whole venture because he's such a good husband, is Johnny. And he listens to his wife. And then they're playing a game of anagrams, which I think is the 1940s equivalent to Scrabble, but they just didn't have boards.
Yeah.
Basically just making words with tiles. And it's an Alfred Hitchcock film. You have 5 seconds to guess what word she comes up with in the game of anagrams. 5, 4, 3, 2. It was murder. Of course it was. And yeah, Beaky, well, God love him. He could only make 3-letter words as well. Just really hammering home that the guy is not very intelligent and he's just got
not smart at all.
No, he's got a bit of money and that's about it. That's all Beaky has going for him.
He has a jovial mood about him as well. He has a jovial.
Yeah. He brings the vibes up in the friend group.
Yeah.
And he brings the cash to the friend group.
Yeah.
And he brings a big smile on his face. But when she sees the word murder, basically, Lena overthinks quite a bit, or I don't know, accurately thinks.
Maybe she does.
Because she then sees all of these visions of Beaky getting thrown off a cliff by Johnny and Johnny using him for his money and taking his money and he is a murderer. And she looks at Johnny and Beaky goes, "Oh, if I had an E and an O, we could use the word murderer." And it's like, come on, Hitchcock, you already had us there. You didn't have to like spoon feed us. You know, you've already put it on the spoon. I can feed myself, you know. But she paints? No, she doesn't paint. She faints. I mixed up passes out and faints there. She faints. And the next morning when she wakes up, she is convinced that good old Beaky's going to get murdered. So she hops in her car and she races to this cliff where they were going to buy that land. And she reckons that Beaky is going to get pushed off that cliff. And when she gets there, she sees tire tracks gone off the cliff. And that's all she sees. And she presumes the worst. And then we get a good bit of Hitchcock tension with some nice score backing it up. Good use of music here as she then rushes home because she reckons that good old Cary Grant, good old Johnny, is actually not so good and is in fact a murderer. And when she gets home, she sees Johnny and she sees Beaky. Beaky's still alive.
Yeah, it turns out not only did Johnny not kill Beaky, he actually saved his life because Beaky did some sort of thingamajig with the car. Basically, the car was pushing him off the cliff, and it was only because of Johnny's intervention that he was able to pull on the handbrake and stop Beaky from plummeting to his death. So good old Johnny saved the day.
Well done, Beaky, getting yourself into that situation where you're trying to parallel park on the edge of a cliff and your mate has to pull up the handbrake for you. Good job, Beaky. She's delighted. Not only is he not a murderer, he's a hero. He's Beaky's hero. So in celebration, Beaky was already planning on going to Paris, but in celebration, Johnnie is going to go to London with him, which is where he's flying out of to go to Paris. And then Johnny's going to head on home. But then Johnny's like, actually, I might spend a little time in London because, you know, I still haven't found a job. So I might try and get a job in London. And yeah, that's what happens. It's definitely what happens. So Johnnie and Beaky go off to London and Beaky goes to Paris and everyone lives happily ever after. Well, actually, they don't.
Maybe not.
Yeah, no, they actually don't, because here is what we know in the film so far. We'll theorize later. They go to London, Beaky goes to Paris. The next morning, Inspector Hodgson, no relation to Roy, shows up at the house and says, yeah, listen, Beaky's dead. God love him. Poor Beaky's dead. I don't know what Beaky's managed to get himself into this time, but Beaky has in fact died. And we need to speak to your husband. And she's like, oh yeah, no, he's in London. But I'll answer whatever questions you have. And then, you know, because she was already pretty skeptical, she's like, oh God, hang on, wait a second. Because the inspector says, oh yeah, by the way, they actually never closed that business. That was still open. So Johnnie is still liable to all of Beaky's cash from the business. Alarm bells.
Basically, the inspectors revealed to Lena that there was a witness in the pub that Beaky and another man were in Paris. And this person apparently only speaks broken English, but from what they were able to make out, one of the phrases that she said that Beaky called this person was old boy. That's right.
I think, is it old bean?
Old bean, yeah. One of the phrases that Beaky called this person was old bean, which is why he's been calling Johnnie all film. So it's clearly meant to be Johnnie, so the audience is supposed to think at this point.
Yeah, to quote the film, there's a bit of suspicion here towards Johnnie. Because, well, he did it. Well, we don't know that yet, but at this point, I'm like...
You're convinced.
Come on, man. He is so clearly the murderer. Anyway,
100%.
He comes home and, in fairness to her, Lena is still pretty suspicious. So she goes to her author friend, Isabel, and she's like, hello, author friend. Talk to me about murder, please. Just so we can, I don't know, further this plot a bit so that you can tell me that he stole a book from you. So talk to me about murder, because, you know, Alfred Hitchcock film. And she says, oh, yeah, what do you want to know? Lena's like, yeah, like the fella in Paris and the beaker of brandy that he drank, which he was allergic to. Has that ever happened before? And she's like, yeah, no, this actually happened in this book that I had. Let me just show you it real quick. Oh, wait, I lent that book to Johnnie.
Yeah.
Like, come on. He's the murderer.
We also find out that Johnnie's been pestering Isabel for information about different ways to murder people, different poisons and stuff. So, I mean...
Yeah, just an ordinary thing to ask someone, I guess.
100%, yeah.
Yeah.
Who doesn't?
And she also kind of speculates, she put two and two together, that, I reckon at this point, he's already probably paid off Melbeck, who he owed $2,000 to, because I don't think we actually see Melbeck again in the film. So I reckon
No, you don't.
If Beaky was murdered by Johnnie and Johnnie got all his cash, that would explain why we then don't see Melbeck for the rest of the film, because, well, the debt's been paid.
We do see Johnnie on the phone to someone who it's clearly meant to be Welbeck, and he's talking to him about how he doesn't have his money yet, but he's going to get his money and yada, yada, yada. So Melbeck, while he's not seen on screen, we definitely still feel his presence in pressurizing Johnnie for his cash that he owes him.
Yeah, and then, you know, Johnnie's not suspicious at all. So when Lena comes back and she's pretty goddamn shaken up, Johnnie says, hey, wife, can I go in the bath first? And she's like, yeah, sure. Go for it. She gets in the bath. She sees a letter. She opens it. Oh, yeah. Johnnie just tried to take out life insurance on her. And it literally says, as it does in all life insurance policies, the only way you get money is if your wife dies. That's what all the life insurance policies say. And Yeah, this shakes her up even more. God, she is really just
Yeah.
getting hit left, right, and center with these your husband's trying to kill you punches. And
Yeah.
after he gets out of the bath, he's like, God, you're pretty shaken up. You seem pretty terrified. Let's go to my friend's house and talk about murder over dinner. So that's what they do. They go to a dinner party with Lena and Johnny and Isabel the author and the local coroner and some other woman. Good for her. And basically, they just chat straight murder. Johnny's like,
Yeah.
"Hey, is there a untraceable poison that exists?" And the coroner's like, "I'm not telling you, you scoundrel." And Isabel's like, "I can tell by looking at you all if you're a murderer or not. And none of you look like murderers."
Yeah.
And poor Lena just has to sit here and listen to this. She is already shaken up. So even if Johnny isn't the murderer, this is terrible husbanding. Your wife is so blatantly shaken up. Get her out of there. And don't ask these questions. Anyway, he's like, yeah, is there a poison that's untraceable? And if so, where can I buy some? Out of interest, hypothetically.
Johnny asks the coroner, who actually happens to be Isabel's brother, we should mention. That's how she knows so much about different poisonings. But anyway, he mentions the word arsenic as a poison. A lot of people obviously making the connection that Cary Grant would go on to make arsenic and old lace with Frank Capra, so it's a little bit of a hint as to what he would go on to do. But yeah, so they outwardly say the word arsenic, and Isabel's brother, the coroner, is like, ooh. So clearly we're meant to think, yeah, arsenic is this untraceable poison, and Johnny is going to, or has already gotten his hands on some arsenic.
And yeah, then we get to the milk scene. The best scene in the film.
By a mile.
Oh, it's so fucking good. Literally, I would love for this to get clipped out of context. Here's the best scene in this film. A man puts a glass of milk on a tray and walks up the stairs and puts it beside his wife. That is the scene. That is literally the scene. No dialogue is exchanged. That is the scene. And it's
a 10-second scene.
Good.
Yeah. It's a 10 to 15-second scene at most. And it's by a mile the best thing in the film.
So basically, good old Hitchcock obviously spent his time in Germany. German expressionism, oh my god, shadows. We're gonna drape this guy in fucking shadows on this staircase.
Silhouettes and shadows.
So many shadows, except this glass of milk, which may or may not have untraceable poison in it. And of course, Hitchcock said he actually put a light in the milk to make it so bright. That's why the milk is as bright as it is and stands out so much.
Yeah.
There's a literal light in the milk, which is what makes it like so.
Yeah.
Oh, the man's good at his job. Good old Johnny's walking up the stairs very ominously, staring at the camera with his singular glass of milk on this big old tray, and he's walking up slowly. He opens the door. He's got his luminous glass of milk. He looks at his wife. She's in bed. She's shivering. She's quaking. He puts the milk beside her. The next morning she wakes up and she didn't drink the milk because RKO don't want that to be the ending. Good old RKO, nice one, lads. So instead, she wakes up, she doesn't drink the milk.
Well, she says she's going to stay with her mother, doesn't she?
Yes,
she says she's going to stay with her mother for a few days. And Johnny doesn't want her to go to her mother's by herself, so he insists on taking her.
Yes.
So yeah, I'll let you take over. But in the car, then certain events transpire.
Yeah, they go for a drive over the same scary old cliffs that Beaky failed to parallel park on, and Johnny straight away kind of opens the door and closes it on her side over the cliff. Bit of foreshadowing, and then the door swings back open again. Obviously the door's broken, and then here's what happens. So it kind of looks like Johnny kind of goes to push her, but it also looks like he tries to grab her because it looks like she's going to fall out, but it looks like she's pushing him out. He's pushing her out. It looks like a whole lot of things. It's very vague intentionally. So either Johnny tried to push her out and then bottled it, or she was falling out and he caught her and saved her. So they park the car because she is shaken up. She gets out of the car. And
all this,
happens?
Just to jump in, all this happening about the incident beforehand, all this happening at like incredibly high speeds because Johnny decided that he wanted to get to her mother's as quickly as possible, which is another reason why she thinks that he's trying to off her. So yeah, they get out of the car, and Johnny is up in arms with her, saying that she could have killed them both, that she doesn't trust them, and she basically says that. Let me see.
By the way, I just love that his dangerous driving. He was going like 50.
Yeah,
Like his breakneck pace that like could have killed them was like 50 kilometers an hour.
On the top of a cliff though, that could if you lost control, that could still kill you.
Well, if you lost control at any speed, it's pretty scary. But like
That's true.
I love that in the 40s, 50 kilometers an hour is like basically racing an F1 car. That's pretty funny.
But yeah, anyway, he races after her and he tries to convince her that he was saving her. She still doesn't believe him, but then she finally works out that he wasn't trying to kill her the whole time. He was trying to kill himself. Basically, he couldn't pay Melbeck back. That's why he tried to take out the life insurance on her, so that when he killed her, she could get the money and pay Melbeck back. Is that right?
Yeah.
Kind of. Basically, he didn't go to France. He was in Liverpool the whole time.
Yeah, so he convinces her that he wasn't in Paris. He didn't kill Beaky.
Yeah.
He was actually in Liverpool. He didn't pay off Melbeck, and he still owes him, and he's scared about going to prison. He wasn't planning on killing her and taking out the life insurance and claiming the policy. He was just taking out very ominous sounding life insurance, I guess. And they make up and they get in the car. The end.
Such a nonsense,
fucking stupid ass ending.
It's so bad.
Yeah,
it ruins the whole film. It's such a cop out. It's like, why did I spend the last hour and a half watching this middling, but when it's good, it's pretty good thriller, and then you just insult the audience like that at the end? It's so bad. Such a bad ending.
The book ends at the milk scene, but basically she has written a letter to say to her mom, it's actually Johnnie who killed me, but I just love him so much that I can't do anything about it. But he is the one who killed me. And then she just literally, she drinks the milk and she gives it to Johnnie and says, will you post that for me? And he's like, yeah, sure. And then he, like Ralph Wiggum, whistles his way over to the letterbox and sticks the letter in, and basically that's him done for, and that's where the novel ends. That is so much better. How can you follow
so much
up,
more satisfying.
How can you follow up the milk scene with that shite? It's the milk scene. It's the best scene in the film. How do you not end on that?
It's one of the best scenes in Hitchcock's filmography up to this point, I would say.
Oh, definitely.
It is by a mile. It's so good, and then the final 6-7 minutes is just so bad by comparison.
It's
so bad.
It really shat the bed at the end, unfortunately, because it was a good thriller up until this point. It's a stupid mess of an ending to an otherwise solid film.
Yeah.
And so this is the only film in Hitchcock's filmography to have an actor or actress win the Academy Award for Best Actor, Actress, Supporting Actress, whatever. What do you reckon?
Like, it's an okay performance, but it's not the best performance in the film, never mind. I mean, look, I haven't seen all the nominees from that year, so I can't say whether she deserved it or not, but I mean, there's quite a lot of Hitchcock performances that I could definitely... I mean, Joan Fontaine and Rebecca for one, really. And a lot of people think that the reason she won for this film is because she didn't win for Rebecca.
Yeah,
so
that's like normally how the Oscars went back then.
Yeah, that's even now, in a lot of ways, that's kind of how they do it now, but that's like... she's better than Rebecca, let's put it away. Even though it's a decent performance, it's nothing out of this world special. If anything, Cary Grant is like clearly the most charismatic person in this, and he's really good in it for the most part. It's his first of 4 collaborations with Hitchcock. He actually, apparently they didn't really get along. He didn't really get along with Joan Fontaine, and he didn't really get along with Hitchcock. But they end up obviously making up, and he went on to do some really good stuff with Hitchcock. But long story short, I think it's a good performance from Joan Fontaine, even, but not quite as good as Cary Grant's, never mind what she did in Rebecca, even. So,
Yeah, so ultimately with this film, I definitely did enjoy it. I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars on Letterboxd. Go follow me on Letterboxd, Harry Bailey 888. And oh, also, I can't believe I didn't say this at the start. I was meant to say it. Please like this video. And give us some ratings on Spotify as well. Give us a little review on Spotify. Drop a few 5 stars if you will, please and thanks. But speaking of star ratings, yeah, we got a 3 out of 5 on my Letterboxd here for this. I think it's good. I think Cary Grant is good in this. He is very rogue. I don't know if I'd call him a lovable rogue. I'd call him a cheeky rogue.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't go as far as to call him lovable. I think he's better in other Hitchcock films, but he's definitely like a proper lead actor. You feel the difference between him and this to some of the other lead actors in some of the other Hitchcock films. Like, he is the lead actor, and you can tell like every scene that he's in. He's got that presence and that charisma.
Yeah.
I think the milk scene is amazing. The milk scene is so good, and there is some other good stuff in here, but ultimately it's like lower mid-tier Hitchcock for me for now, although I haven't seen a lot of his like worst films. So take it that it's like lower mid-tier for a guy who's seen about 25, 26 of his films up until this point. So like, I don't know where that actually is going to leave it ranked in the future, but hey, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Shane, what did you make of this film?
Yeah, I also gave it 3 out of 5 stars. I was leaning towards maybe like a 3.5-ish. I wouldn't go more than that, but then the just absolute cop-out ending just really pissed me off. So I'm not going to go lower than a 3 because I think there's enough good stuff in here, especially the milk scene, but there's enough good stuff populated elsewhere and enough good performances that it's always watchable. It's always a very watchable, entertaining thriller. But yeah, it doesn't touch any of his best work, or it doesn't even touch any of his kind of tier 2 work even. So I think 3 out of 5 is what I'd go, and it's something that if you're a Hitchcock completionist, you'll enjoy. If you're someone for whom Hitchcock is like maybe not someone you're massively into, you want to watch key films in his filmography, maybe there's better stuff to watch maybe. But 3 out of 5, yeah, is what I went.
Yeah, you could get away with skipping this, and I've just realized because we're really trying to grow the channel here. I am just gonna actually just insert me saying this, and you know what? The people who are watching the podcast right now, you can even get in on this, because if you're at the end, you deserve to listen to all this. I'm just gonna edit me saying like this video earlier on. So right, yeah. And now back to me again, but like after I've inserted that thing. Hello everyone again. So yeah, thank you so much for watching or listening wherever you are in the world. I saw on Spotify we have listeners in Mongolia. Hello, our Mongolian friends. So, and Argentina. Argentina is our second biggest demographic on Spotify. That's weird. Like, ahead of Great Britain and America.
Hola.
Hola. So, yeah, thank you so much, guys. And I cannot actually tell you for certain what next week's episode is going to be. It'll either be Saboteur or a different film. Ooh, scary.
Ooh.
But I don't know. It might just be Saboteur. We're trying to schedule stuff. Anyway, thank you so much. I've been Harry Bailey. See you later.
I've been Shane Mulvaney. Sorry, go.